In a quiet apartment, the only light comes from the kitchen table. A young couple sits side by side, their shoulders bent forward, staring at a stack of bills spread across the surface. The rent notice is on top, bold numbers circled in red. Next to it lies a grocery receipt, longer than expected, filled with items that once felt ordinary, but now seem like luxuries. A phone screen lights up with a new alert, another credit card payment due in just 3 days. They whisper about what can be cut, crossing out a streaming service, delaying a trip to see family, even skipping a few items at the store. But no matter how carefully they move numbers from one column to another, the total never balances. Scenes like this play out in countless homes across the country, not in moments of crisis, but in the ordinary rhythm of daily life. It is the quiet pressure of rising costs showing up in every corner of the household budget. A generation that works longer hours, that juggles multiple jobs, now pauses and asks the same question: why does making it feel impossible today? And if life feels this heavy now, how did earlier generations experience the same journey? Back in the late 1970s, a young couple could stand in front of a modest single-family home with a real chance of calling it their own. The house might have a small porch, a patch of grass out front, and a for sale sign stuck into the ground. Inside, the rooms were simple, maybe 2 bedrooms and a kitchen with vinyl flooring, but for many families it was enough. The asking price was often just 2 or 3 times the yearly salary of a single full-time worker. A bank would review the application, and with one stable income, the couple could qualify for a 30-year loan. By the time they reached retirement, the mortgage would be paid off, and the house would stand as both shelter and security. College looked different as well. In the early 1980s, a semester's tuition at a public university was low enough that students could cover it with part-time jobs at diners, bookstores, or campus offices. Graduating without debt was common, and entering the workforce meant starting life without the shadow of monthly loan payments. Healthcare was another story that worked in their favor. Company insurance plans were widely available, and premiums took only a small portion of a paycheck. When a child got sick, parents worried about the fever, not the bill that would follow. These everyday conditions shaped a different kind of dream. Owning a home, sending children to school, and retiring with stability were not privileges for the few, but expectations for the many. The American dream, as it was lived by earlier generations, was built into the structure of ordinary life. And yet, looking at today's families, the path no longer follows the same line. The houses are still there, the universities are still full, and the hospitals still run, but the costs have shifted far beyond the reach of a single paycheck. If one generation found the dream within arm's reach, why has it slipped so far away for the next? The dream that once seemed so close has now slipped out of reach, and with that gap has come a growing argument between generations. At a small coffee shop, a young professional orders a simple breakfast. The receipt shows an $8 charge for toast topped with avocado, and headline sees on it as a symbol of excess. Commentators and older voices point to it as proof that today's young adults simply lack discipline. They say, if only you stopped buying lattes and trendy meals, you could save enough to buy a home, just as we did. But step outside the cafe, and the reality looks different. A group of 20-somethings gather around a laptop, comparing job offers and student loan balances. Each page shows monthly payments that rival the cost of rent. They laugh at the idea that skipping breakfast out could ever close the gap between their paychecks and the price of a starter home. For them, the struggle is not about coffee or toast, but about numbers that no budget app can solve. This divide has fueled a cultural argument. At family dinners, parents tell stories of buying their first house in their late 20s, paying off loans by their 30s, and saving enough for vacations. Across the table, their children sit quietly, knowing that even with degrees, steady jobs, and careful planning, the milestones their parents reached are years further away. The conversation ends with polite nods, but the unspoken tension lingers. The image of avocado toast may be catchy, but it hides the deeper truth. It is not lifestyle choices that keep this generation from moving forward. It is the weight of larger forces pressing down. Rising housing costs, relentless tuition bills, medical expenses, and childcare fees form barriers far higher than any cafe receipt. If the debate is not really about how a meal is ordered, then what are the true costs that shape the limits of today's American dream? The true costs stand higher than any cafe receipt, and 3 of them rise above the rest. Housing is the first wall. On a Saturday morning, young couples line up outside an open house in a quiet suburb. The small driveway is already full, and cars spill onto the street. Inside, the house is modest, 2 bedrooms and a narrow kitchen. But the asking price is written in bold on the flyer, far beyond what their combined salaries can cover. Agents hand out forms, and within hours, offers arrive from buyers with more cash or higher incomes. For many, the dream of owning a first home ends before it can begin. Education is the second wait. On a laptop screen, a 20-something worker opens an email marked loan payment reminder. The numbers stare back, month after month, as balances refuse to shrink. Parents sigh when they see tuition bills, knowing that the promise of higher education now comes bundled with years of debt. What once opened doors now chains young adults to monthly obligations that stretch far into the future. Childcare is the third burden. Outside a daycare center, parents wait on a long list just to secure a spot. The monthly cost rivals rent, forcing families to decide whether one parent should step out of the workforce. Inside their homes, couples whisper late at night about shifting schedules, trading shifts at work, and even leaving careers behind just to keep pace with the needs of their children. Together, these 3 costs form the pillars of pressure. They are not luxuries, but necessities, and yet they stand as barriers higher than most incomes can climb. When housing, education, and childcare consume so much, little remains for savings, investments, or dreams. And so, many young adults wonder, if these walls take so much away, then why do their accounts still show growing wealth on paper? The numbers on paper seem to rise, but daily life tells a different story. In a living room, a young family gathers around a laptop. On the screen, a property website shows their modest home is now worth nearly 50% more than when they bought it. For a moment, smiles spread across their faces. It feels like progress, as if wealth has arrived overnight. But almost immediately, a phone buzzes on the table. A new message appears, credit card payment due. Another email follows, a reminder for a student loan installment, and beside the fridge, a stack of utility bills waits unopened. The sudden optimism fades, replaced by the weight of numbers that demand cash, not estimates of value. The same picture plays out in the stock market. On a glowing phone screen, a young worker scrolls through an investment app. Green arrows point upward, and the balance looks larger than ever. Yet the fridge behind him holds only a half-empty carton of milk, a few eggs, and a single pack of bread. On the way to the register at the grocery store, he calculates how to split his paycheck between food, gas, and another rising rent bill. This is the paradox of phantom wealth. Assets look stronger, charts show growth, and official figures suggest households are richer than before. But real life is measured in receipts, rent checks, and monthly payments that cannot be ignored. For many young adults, the distance between paper wealth and lived reality grows wider every year. If the charts and estimates say life is improving, then why does each month still feel like a struggle to keep up? Each month feels like a struggle because income itself is never steady. In a small grocery store, a young mother stands at the checkout line. Her cart holds only the basics: bread, milk, rice, and a few vegetables. When the cashier reads the total, she hesitates, then slides a credit card across the counter. The card approves the payment, but she knows it only delays the problem until next month. At home, another bill will arrive, and the balance will grow again. For many workers, the problem begins with unstable hours. At a diner, a cook checks the schedule posted on the wall. Last week he worked 45 hours, this week only 30. The paycheck will shrink, but the rent will not. His budget shifts week by week, depending not on his choices, but on how many shifts the manager assigns. A college student scrolls through her phone late at night. The app shows next week's work schedule, 2 shifts canceled, 3 left uncertain. She recalculates how to cover her loan payment and her share of rent, tapping numbers into a calculator, erasing them, and starting again. The numbers never seem to hold still. This constant instability pushes families to rely on credit, filling the gap between what they earn and what they owe. The result is a cycle that turns daily survival into long-term debt. Every swipe of a card, every new loan, becomes a reminder that steady work no longer guarantees steady life. It raises another question. If income and expenses no longer align for so many, then how much of this instability comes from the structure of the economy itself, rather than from the individuals who struggle within it. The instability many families feel is not only the result of personal choices, but of the system around them. In a hospital waiting room, a father holds a clipboard of insurance papers. His child sits beside him with a toy in hand, unaware of the numbers printed across the forms. Even with coverage, the deductible looms large, and the final bill may arrive weeks later with charges no one expected. For many Americans, the real fear during an illness is not just the diagnosis, but the debt that follows. Cross an ocean, and the picture changes. In Germany, students gather in a lecture hall, paying only a fraction of what their American peers face. A young woman in Canada drops her child off at a subsidized daycare, where the monthly fee is less than what many Americans pay in a single week. In Scandinavia, families visit doctors without wondering how to cover the cost, because the system itself shares the burden. Back in the United States, the burden falls on individuals. Parents take second jobs to cover tuition, workers cut back on groceries to afford childcare, and families push medical bills onto credit cards. These pressures are not the result of avocado toast or careless spending, but of policies that leave households to carry costs alone. Global trade adds another layer of uncertainty. At a supermarket, a shopper reaches for imported goods, coffee, fruit, or electronics, only to find higher prices stamped on the shelf. Tariffs have turned ordinary items into heavier expenses, acting like an invisible tax that falls hardest on those who already spend most of their income on basics. Businesses, unsure of what comes next, hold back on hiring, leaving workers with fewer opportunities to climb out of the cycle. This contrast between nations highlights a deeper truth. The challenges facing American families are not inevitable, but the result of choices made about how costs are shared, how policies are written, and how risks are distributed. And it leaves one final question hanging over the next generation. If the structure remains the same, what kind of future will young people inherit? If the structure remains unchanged, the future for many young people will look very different from the past. Picture a man in his 60s, sitting at a kitchen table with retirement papers spread in front of him. He should be planning trips or hobbies, but instead he holds a rent notice in his hand. Unlike his parents, who owned their homes outright by this age, he still faces monthly payments that will follow him for the rest of his life. The idea of a stable retirement slips further away when housing is never truly secured. For younger families, the dream is shifting into something new. In a quiet neighborhood, two households share the task of childcare. Children play together in one living room, while parents trade afternoons so each can keep their jobs. It is not the image of a single-family home with a white picket fence, but it is a survival strategy that grows more common each year. Among young adults, cohabitation has become the rule rather than the exception. A group of friends move into a shared apartment, pooling their incomes to cover rising rents. On Friday nights, they cook together in a crowded kitchen, laughter echoing through the space they call home. The arrangement may not match the past ideal, but it builds bonds of community that ease the financial strain. These adaptations reveal both hardship and resilience. The burden of costs may push people into tighter spaces, shared schedules, and new compromises, but it also creates moments of solidarity. Strangers become roommates, neighbors become partners, and families find new ways to lean on each other. The reality is clear. This generation's struggle is not the result of careless choices, but of the larger structures that shape everyday life. And so the final question remains: will society choose to rebuild a system that allows stability to return, or will future generations continue to carry the weight of an impossible dream?